What's up? So they say things happens in threes, and so Hulk Hogan, we had Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne. Now we got Hulk Hogan, age 71. He's a very polarizing figure, especially if you black, because his racist rhetoric, his stance, MAGA, his whole agenda changed. Had he just been Hulk Hogan of the 80s, and when he wrestled against Rocky Balboa, the Italian Stallion, had he just stayed the way he was in the 80s and maybe to the 90s and we never heard his rhetoric, we probably would have loved him, in general speaking. But his changes were such broken down. And what's so sad is that he was only 71 because you would have thought the cat was a lot older. I remember the hair, the flair, the dynamics, WWF. See, I was a Mid-South Ric Flair fan. I did all that. Hogan was the other side. But Hogan was the main side, him and Vince McMahon. He was loved, he was adored. He was one of the biggest names in wrestling history, period. You can't even talk about kings of wrestling without mentioning his name. You just can't. So, but his rhetoric and how he turned out, and it's so sad because the cat, when you have the world by the tail, all walks of life loved him. And just think about it. So a few months ago, he went to LA and he got booed because of his racist rhetoric and what came out of his mouth and his Trump support. And I'm going to say it like this. You can be conservative. You can like what you like politically. The problem you run into, though, is when you start spewing some rhetoric where it's divisive, where it comes off like you're just trying to say stuff for clicks and baits. And then when you're doing stuff where people are offended and you don't seem to get it. And you should be bestowed and held into a legendary capacity. Should have been somebody that was revered. Truly. I mean, because TV wrestlers were huge when I was coming along. I mean, we love Ric Flair. We love the Four Horsemen. And Hogan was a standard. You know how people are about The Rock and John Cena? Hogan was 3 times bigger than them put together. And I ain't exaggerating. Roddy Piper. If you were a fan in the 80s of WWF, everything started with Hulk Hogan. So he had that aspect. He was a larger than life figure. I mean, think about it. He was in a Rocky movie, for crying out loud. Was a fictional character. But he was as big as Rocky once upon a time. His rhetoric and the polarizing of him that he went out, and then the bitterness of his divorce and things he said about his daughter and things he said, it's just like, this guy, and